Welcome, friends, it's the Movie Film Podcast. Movie Film Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. Movie Film Podcast on the radio.
This summer, from Universal Pictures and Amblin Entertainment, John Goodman, Rick Moranis, Elizabeth Perkins, Rosie O'Donnell, Kyle MacLachlan, Halle Berry, Jonathan Winters, the BC-52s, and Elizabeth Taylor. Steven Spielberg presents The Flintstones. Directed by Brian Levant.
Welcome to a movie film comment trock. I'm Zachy Hastone, and I'm here with Brachiosaur Hall.
Hey, how's it going, Zachy?
Brian, I'm not going to lie, I have flop sweat trying to come up with our Stone Age pun names.
I just had much hesitation even replying to you because I was like, wait, am I already messing up his Stone Age name? But
I feel a certain sense of what the writers of our selection for today must have gone through 30 some years ago.
I wonder if they even did a pass. You know, sometimes screenwriters, they'll talk about doing a character pass, just paying attention to one character and making sure they sound like themselves. I wonder if they had people combing through for as many Stone Age puns as they could possibly cram into this thing.
The pun pass?
The pun pass.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But we are, of course, talking about the Flintstones.
Yeah. 1994 is the Flintstones. You know, you think of 1994, that's such an iconic year. I mean, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, like Speed, all these like movies that we still sort of reference and celebrate all these years later. And I probably would not have been able to tell you what year this movie came out. I just remember it was sort of an early 90s thing, you know? It's weird that this is in company with all those other movies. I'd kind of forgotten that. It
is a fascinating artifact, if you will, of that era. And I'm always like, whenever I pitch this stuff to you, I'm like, hey, we could have a fun discussion about this, you know? And the thing about the Flintstones movie to me is I look at it and I'm like, I think this is a movie that could only have been made in 1994.
Yes.
Right? The technology to create it was probably right. That's when it became possible. And that was the last time the Flintstones enjoyed the kind of cultural familiarity where you could just drop people in and be like, hey, it's Fred and Barney and they're having antics.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the parents would want to see this out of nostalgia, but the kids, us, we knew who the Flintstones were.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They still meant something to us. So yeah, but I think that window, they keep trying to bring it back.
That's right.
Seth MacFarlane even tried, I think, at some point, but I feel like that window is shrinking.
It is shrinking very rapidly. So with that, we are watching 1994's The Flintstones, produced by Steven Spielberg, directed by Brian Levant. And hey, if you want to watch along with us, you can. But I would totally understand if you don't have a copy of this one handy. And hopefully we can keep our conversation interesting enough. But just in case you do want to watch it, why don't we take a short break and you can scare up your copy and get it all queued up. And we are back and ready to go. Brian, you ready?
I'm ready to rock.
Hey, that's good. I like that. Yabba dabba do it.
Buckle up, everybody.
Oh, man. There's going to be a lot of this. So we will do the usual thing. Hit play on 3. So I will count to 3. 1, 2, 3, play. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, play.
Okay. 1994. Were you excited for this movie?
I don't know that I was excited for it, but I was curious about it.
Probably the same. I
think we were slightly older than the target demo for this.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the word excited, but I was definitely like positive curious about it, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Like I like the Flintstones.
I like the Flintstones, exactly.
Yeah, just curious what that would look like.
I mean, we have to say that Steven Spielberg is the guy who got it across the finish line,
Mm-hmm.
and his muse is endlessly fascinating to me. The things that just strike his fancy,
Yeah.
and he just kind of picks up a phone and is like, "Hey, get the rights to that." So we go, within a 4-year span, we go from the Flintstones to Zorro to, it's just like
Yeah, that's funny.
it's a very interesting mix.
Yeah, but I do have to say I appreciate how tactile this movie is. I mean, you were
Absolutely.
saying that there was just like a real X marks the spot of when this movie could possibly make over $300 million worldwide, and I think
Isn't that amazing? One of the
1994 was it.
biggest hits of that year.
Incredible.
Yeah.
But you do have very early CGI, right? Like there's
Yeah.
sort of a combination of Dino being a practical Jim Henson puppet shop creature and certain shots where he's doing other things where he's CGI. But the bulk of it being practical, I mean, this movie looks incredible.
I mean, when I was rewatching it, I should say, for this, I was getting kind of like Dick Tracy vibes.
Interesting. Wait,
Right.
expand on that.
In that, I mean, the story is like whatever,
Yes.
but you watch it just to be dropped into this visual fantasia. It's a feast for the eyes. And that's Dick Tracy is like that too.
That's so funny. Yeah. Even, again, as early as this is for CGI, that dinosaur doesn't look bad.
No, I think so. I mean, well, this is a year out from Jurassic.
That is true. That is true. But I love that combo. The combo of practical and CGI here. It really works.
Well, I think what helps is that Brian Levant, who directed this, was just a fan of the Flintstones.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen archival interviews of him. He has a Flintstones collection, like pre this movie,
Right, right,
just like toys and I didn't know people had Flintstones collections, right?
Yeah, same.
And so he came at it from not. In other words, he was like, I want to translate the world of the cartoon to the screen. I don't want to do a Super Mario Brothers movie.
Mm-hmm.
Which initially, Stan Winston was who they were doing the dinosaur effects with, and he was kind of coming at it more from a Jurassic Park perspective.
Yeah.
And this movie needed, per the director, it needed whimsy. It needs to exist in a completely fanciful world.
I completely agree with that. It's funny because I just accept it, just watching it. But thinking of the decisions that had to be made, that would be hard saying, no, I don't think Stan Winston is right for my movie. I can't imagine those words coming out of my mouth, but he's right. Like these Muppet puppet looking things are totally in, with the tone of the show.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And apparently, I mean, the director was, watching Dinosaurs, the ABC sitcom was what made him say, oh, wait, that's what we need.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't look this up, but I wonder if that's the Batcave that they just came out of.
From the television show?
TV show. Yeah, that looks familiar. Now they're at the Vasquez Rocks.
The very famous Vasquez Rocks from Bill and Ted and Star Trek and
yep. I've always wanted to visit those. They're not too far.
That seems like one of the few things you have not visited.
Yeah.
Part of your film vocab. So real quick, I think to whatever extent this movie works, it's because of these two guys right here.
Yes.
You talk about perfect casting, maybe much to John Goodman's chagrin. Perfect casting.
I was surprised to read that. I mean, I guess you can understand, but you don't know what something's going to look like, and you run the risk of looking foolish, right? Imitating a cartoon character.
I mean, it's very funny because if you watch this movie without any other context, you could not be convinced that Goodman was a hostile witness in essence.
Mm-hmm.
Did not want to be there. But he's talked about it since then. He's like, him and Rick Moranis just got on like a house on fire.
That's great. I mean, and they are, as you said, perfect casting. I mean, they embody these characters, like the lovable best friend next door. Just feel, you just feel that for Rick Moranis inherently anyway, right?
Yeah,
so he's already bringing that to the character of Barney here.
Yeah, the movie had been in development since the 80s. And initially Joel Silver was producing it. Richard Donner was going to direct it, which I can absolutely imagine that, because Richard Donner was just a chameleonic in terms of his ability to take on different tones. But Moranis was attached even back then. We're talking mid '80s.
Wow.
But but Jim Belushi was who was attached for Fred.
You know, I can kind of see it. Yeah, I can kind of see it.
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, obviously, Goodman's got more of the physicality.
And by the way, real quick, look at the fact that they built a whole Stone Age suburb here.
Incredible.
I mean, it's amazing, you know?
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that 10% of its $46 million budget went just to building bedrock, which you can see, but it pays off. I mean, it looks great. And Dean Cundey, by the way, I was surprised to see he's the DP.
That's right.
Yeah. And he had just done Jurassic Park.
So he just segued from one to the other.
Yeah.
Now, Steven D'Souza gets story credit here, and I mean, the version that we see here has basically nothing to do with the one he wrote, but he was attached back in the 80s.
Yeah, he was the original draft, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And then they went through 35 writers, at least, I should say, 35 writers on this. And people from like Gary Ross, and eventually I think it was Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel.
Yep, that's right.
The guys who did Splash, City Slickers, Parenthood, League of Their Own, they're the ones who did the final draft.
It's interesting because, like I said, around the late 80s or so, Spielberg picks up the rights from after it went into turnaround, and he works with John Goodman on Always.
Right.
And per John Goodman, this is like day one. It's a table read for the cast. And Spielberg is like, before we start the table read, I just want to say to everybody, I found my Fred Flintstone, as he sort of gestures towards John Goodman. which if you're John Goodman circa 1990 or whatever that was, like 89, is that a compliment or not? I don't know, you know?
That's so funny. And also, I mean, talk about, you know, putting someone on the spot, you know, what are you going to say? And especially to Steven Spielberg.
To Steven Spielberg. And essentially, I mean, that's what Goodman said. He was sort of dragooned into it. And, you know, he didn't. I mean, Spielberg said, I'm not doing it without John Goodman.
But, I mean, look at his face, the shape of his face.
I mean he is. I mean, it's like, I don't know if it's a compliment. He was born to play Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, but then, and it's a complicated thing, too, because he's sort of boorish, but he's also got to be lovable.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know that a lot of people could pull that off, and Goodman absolutely does.
Well, and the thing is that, and by the way, I love the puppet, the little garbage disposal puppet. And the fact
I love the puppet. Didn't love the noise. It was a little too disturbing by half for me. I was like, maybe fun it up a little bit and make it not sound like he's actually gagging.
Like gagging. But I love that little pig guy becomes a character later on.
Yes, it's really funny. Yeah.
No, but you know, when we remember that the original Fred Flintstone was inspired by Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners, and Goodman vis-a-vis Roseanne was kind of playing in a modern day version of what The Honeymooners represented. You know, it's kind of weird how that. I mean, Roseanne was doing something very different from The Honeymooners. It's like a working class sitcom, you know. So it's certainly part of that lineage.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I didn't make the connection.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you have to appreciate that, like, every single piece of clothing, prop, set had to be created for this, and it all. I wish you could, like the way they preserved the Grinch set at Universal Studios.
Right.
It'd be nice if you could walk through this somewhere. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see all the details you missed.
Well, you know, apparently, you know, Amblin was so high on this that they wanted to get started on sequels while the sets were still, you know, up. Totally. And I mean, literally, John Goodman went to Steven Spielberg. He's like, please don't make me do sequels.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. I mean, I guess I kind of get it, but just that he was so adamant against it, it's interesting.
If you go online, you can see archival press junket interviews from that era, and you can definitely see him dying slowly inside. There was one interview with somebody who was like, the way De Niro, looked in the mirror and he says, "Are you talking to me? Do you look in the mirror and say yabba dabba doo?" And it's just he is not having it.
Just kill me.
Yeah. He's like, no, I didn't do that.
But he's a person who he had been in movies at that point, right?
Yeah.
And now he had this hit show, and I'm sure he's trying to break into movies as some sort of movie star, not just in these playing coaches and things. And
by the way, there's Cheryl Lee Ralph from Abbott Elementary.
Oh yeah. But like I could see this is an important. The steps he takes right now are very pivotal for him.
That's right.
At least in his mind, and it's now I think a movie like this is more. We're used to this, maybe. Like all audiences checking something like this out, but maybe he thought he was being sort of relegated to the basement, like some sort of children's film or something.
Yeah, I mean, well, you can imagine John Goodman wearing this costume and being like, "Is this, for the rest of my career? Is this what I'm going to be known as?"
Yeah.
And 30 years later, we're able to say, well, no, John Goodman, he's one of our great actors. I mean, he's got this amazing range. He's able to do drama and comedy and you name it,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when he's in the heat of it, it's I can imagine the trepidation of if this thing tanks, if you're John Goodman, it's two worries. If this thing tanks, then it's like it's hanging around my neck. And if it's a success, it's hanging around my neck.
Right. And I just feel like we're in an age now where it's more common for adults to go see kids movies.
That's true. Well, and the funny thing about this is that, because I was watching this with my wife earlier, and she's like, "Is this a kids movie?" And I'm like, well, it's a good point. Like it's about like embezzlement and like, is his secretary seducing him and stuff? But I was like, for us, we were used to this type of stuff. I mean,
yes,
right? Like
people, now you have shows where people can't even pat someone on the back anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like the S&P will give notes about like, they shouldn't be touching without, consent, or like that's assault, and I mean, I wish I was kidding. And it's really, really, really overthought. I think probably coming from I believe it's coming from a good place mostly, but then the pendulum swings and you start to overthink, and then you can't even have people behaving like people anymore.
That's right.
But yes, when we were growing up, we were watching the most violent, shotguns to the face, kind of anvils on the head. Yeah, like possible infidelity with the secretary kind of cartoons. I don't know what that was, but that was what we grew up with.
Yeah, and I mean the Flintstones cartoon, like this movie. That's what I was thinking about as I was watching it. I was like, it's tonally of a piece with the cartoon show.
Yeah, I think so.
So other than it being sort of like Bam Bam's origin story, I suppose, you could just drop it in as an episode. And I think, and this goes to what I was saying earlier, where you could only really do this back then.
Sure.
Because the show was still in syndication. And I mean, I grew up watching the Flintstones regularly. I was very familiar with it.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
WPWR, weekday mornings. It's just part of life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By the way, Richard Mall is here as one of the right there, right behind Barney from Night Court. He just passed away. And then one of the Cro-Magnon people, let's see if I can find him, but that's Jack O'Halloran from Superman 2.
Huh.
There's quite a few people who kind of show up in these random, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but like Jack O'Halloran and Richard Mall playing like cavemen.
Yeah.
That seems on brand,
Oh, I mean, he's doing
yeah, right there, the guy in the middle.
All the facial expressions are funny.
Yeah.
They're selling.
The only one they didn't get is Richard Kiel. He played Jaws in the Bond movies.
Yeah, he would have been good. Is this the only sort of water buffalo reference we get, I guess? Or actually, they're not even referencing it. They're just sort of.
Yeah, like in the cartoon, it was like their club, right?
Mm-hmm.
They would go to the meetings and stuff. It's so funny because like I definitely think growing up as a kid, I was like, oh, that's what it means. When you're a grown up, you have like your lodge that you go to with your
Yes.
guy friends. And, you know, the guys go bowling. It's definitely like the Flintstones.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. When I was working on Puppy Dog Pals, I would be pitching things from cartoons I remembered when I was a kid. I wanted to do an episode about a sock hop.
okay.
And it was like, that is like out of date for me. You know what I mean? But it was just
That's
like,
so
I don't know,
funny.
isn't that like sock hops? It's like a thing, right?
The-
Yeah.
there's an episode of the Flintstones, and I can't remember which one it is. I mean, I don't remember them, but it's like Fred becomes like a rock and roll star,
I remember that.
and he starts becoming like, you know, like he's being mean to his family or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so Wilma and them, to get him to be less popular, they start going among the teenagers and be like, hey, have you heard that Fred is square?
Right.
And they do like with their fingers, you know. And I was like, I had no idea what square means, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But to this day, my concept of square, oh, that person's square, it's because of a Flintstones episode.
Yeah. I think of the latest I can think of anyone referencing that at all is Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Uma Thurman makes the
Uma
thing.
Thurman, yep.
Which makes sense because Tarantino likes to look back.
That's right.
It's funny you mentioned that, by the way, the plot.
Yeah.
Because I really enjoyed watching this movie, but I was trying to decide if I actually liked it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it sort of, it didn't make me joyful. If
No,
that makes
I mean,
sense. You know, and
no,
I was trying to think why. Like I was more impressed with it and went, wow, they did a good job than actually feeling any joy while watching it. And
think
part of
that's
me
true.
thought it had something to do with the plot because it's kind of sad to watch the plot of friends turning on one another.
That's a really good point. Wow.
And so this is the thought I had to Pat. Well, we'll get to Elizabeth Taylor real quick. Let me just say this one thing. I thought, you know, maybe you don't do that in the first movie. Maybe once we love these characters, you do it in the second movie. And then once we know we've had the established friendships made, then we get to see that in the second movie, rooting for them to get back together. And then I swear I learned this the day later when I was doing research on this. Apparently the pilot of this show was changed because the pilot had the characters quarreling.
How funny. Wow.
And they decided they didn't want that to be the pilot because they didn't think that was a good way to start the series. And I was like, wait, that's the exact feeling I had about this movie. So I don't know.
Well, the way I see it, and by the we mentioned Elizabeth Taylor. I mean, this is like a big deal having her in this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be sort of lost now. It just feels like this, but especially at the time. I mean, this was her last film appearance. That's
kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, she was. I don't know, who would that be today, I guess.
She was probably in her 60s when she made this.
Yeah, it's hard to make a comparison though. Like, I mean, she came from, you know, the golden.
I mean,
age
she was like Hollywood golden age. She was stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
At the peak of her stardom, and at this point, she was known for being friends with Michael Jackson and being married a bunch of times.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
But no, what we were saying about the plot, I think what you're saying is valid. However, the thought occurs to me that at the time this movie came out, most kids' primary familiarity with Fred and Barney would be Fred being mad at Barney for trying to steal his pebbles.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. And then that was the other thought I had after this movie ended. I was like, man, I just really feel like having a bowl of Pebbles cereal.
Cocoa Pebbles. And then, you know, of course, to wash it down with a Flintstone vitamin.
Yeah. I mean, that's the crazy thing, right? Is Pebbles cereal still going?
Yeah.
Still going. Name me a licensed cereal that has had that kind of longevity.
Well, that, and then also, I mean, do your kids think of Pebbles or Fred Flintstone like the Trix Rabbit? It's just a cereal mascot.
That's the weird thing, because I was watching this with my daughter. She's 7.
Mm-hmm.
And she I know she hasn't seen the cartoon, but she knows the Flintstones. And I was like, it must be because of the cereal.
Yeah.
You know?
Makes sense.
But yeah, the vitamins, they're still around, I think.
I think so. Do you think they're actually healthy?
I mean, not for us as 40-year-old men, but probably for kids in lieu of whatever else they eat. You know?
Then yes. Yeah. On a scale of 1 to pixie sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love this. Every single thing. I mean, the salt and pepper shaker on the table.
I mean, they had to build it all. They had to build the world. And to your point, like the story is almost irrelevant to that because really it's just being
Yep.
dropped into. It's like a live action version of the cartoon. You know?
That's exactly what I was like. The plot is just ancillary. It's just like an excuse. It's like a coat hanger to hang puns and fun
Yeah,
visuals and
the visuals. Yeah.
characters.
And here's Kyle MacLachlan playing the Rob Lowe character.
Oh man, actually, I like Kyle MacLachlan a lot. He's great in this, but Rob Lowe, I can see even just an extra degree of sliminess to it. It's funny.
Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan talked about like he was just a fan of the cartoon. So they're like, "Hey, do you want to play Cliff Vandercave?" He's like, "Yep."
He's great. I remember at the time thinking about the fact that I didn't know who this was. I do remember that.
Oh, how interesting! You did not know.
He was kind of a generic, square-jawed, handsome guy to me.
How funny!
Yeah, because I wasn't watching like Twin Peaks or anything like that.
See, I for sure knew him because of Dune.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So that's the thing. He would have been in his like early 30s here, you know?
Yeah. He's still a good-looking guy. Have you seen him?
I've just because he's in Fallout, right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's like funny on Instagram, and
that's the thing. I mean, there's sort of like a McLaughlin-assance going on right now, and I'm fully on board with that because I think he's a good actor, and he deserves all the good things, Brian.
I agree. Rosie O'Donnell is Betty. I remember there was opinions at the time, but I'm gonna say I think she does a great job.
I agree with you. I supposedly when Rick Moranis heard that Rosie O'Donnell had been cast, he said, "As who, Fred?"
Yeah,
which I'm going to say is kind of a hurtful thing to say. However, Rick Moranis said later that he got along great with her and they had a really good time. I think what's funny is by implication, what Rick Moranis is saying. Oh, she's heavier, right? And the truth is, she's not even that heavy in this.
No.
Right. So, let's talk about people's perceptions, the issues there about what women are supposed to look like,
Yeah, I think it also becomes real apparent to me, like the great job that she's doing, because I feel like Elizabeth Perkins looks the part.
Yeah.
But she's not additive or punctuating it in any way or bringing something, whatever it is that she brings, she's not, making it more three-dimensional. Whereas I think Rosie O'Donnell is bringing this character to life and has a little bit more of an impact in the execution. And
I think part of that is because Betty, by nature of the story, kind of has more to do.
That's true. She's allowed to be a little bit more emotional and feel sad, frustrated, forgiveness, whatever.
But I mean, to that point, Wilma, certainly in the cartoon, is a little bit more of a spark plug, right? Like she gives Fred more shit.
Yeah, and I kind of wish there was a little more sass to her or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But she definitely looks the part, to your point.
Yeah. I saw that some of the other people considered were like Catherine O'Hara and Gina Davis, and I was like, yeah, just there's like a little.
No, I could definitely see
more spark, as you say.
Okay, so 2 points here. Number one, if they have envelopes, why do they need slates? Right. But when I was watching this with my wife, she was like, this scene, she's like, so is this how they used to do it? Like using chisels. And I was like, are you asking, like cavemen? Yeah. Are you asking me if the Flintstones is historically accurate to cavemen in corporate jobs? Like
corporate jobs. I didn't even think, actually, I was just thinking about how funny it is, the idea of using the slates like paper, but yes, like corporate jobs.
I then said, guess what story I'm going to be telling in the commentary track that we're going to record. So here it is.
That's funny.
The whole what Barney does, the whole switching the thing, like I love it because it's such a Barney thing to do.
It's so classic sitcom, and yes, in character for him to look out for his friend.
By the way, Halle Berry, who is gorgeous in this.
Oh yeah.
Fairly certain this is the first movie I saw her in.
I think so too.
But the character she plays, Sharon Stone, was supposed to be played by Sharon Stone,
which is very funny.
Yeah, and so if nothing else, because we missed out on that, I'm like, that kind of sucks. But
Yeah. Apparently she
I,
was very busy at the time.
it was just a scheduling thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a very funny idea.
But kind of like what we're talking about here with when you look at what everyone is wearing, right? Like they're wearing stuff from the cartoons. I mean, Fred is wearing it's like exactly what he wears in the cartoon. But what I was noticing was like the texture of the tie and stuff. Like you had to somehow come up with a real world, like Cliff over there. It's like a leather thing. It looks like something right out of the cartoon. But again, you have to translate it in a way where it's reflective of the cartoon, but it looks realistic, but not too realistic, not too cartoony. There's a lot of moving parts there.
That's a funny joke there too with the newspaper. Not just having the picture of Fred be the animated version of Fred, but the way that the thing depresses on the grass because it's heavy.
Well, no, and the headline is Middle East peace talks breakdown.
Oh, is it really?
Which is like, so since the Stone Age, that's been going on.
Oh, well, that's funny. Well, it's not funny, but
it's ironic.
It's ironic. But this is what I talk about with the pun pass, where it's like, okay, he's going to wake up in the morning. It's like, well, what if he had an alarm clock that's, a magnifying glass, and he wouldn't have anything digital, so and a rock falls on his head, and just, I don't know. Every corner has been considered. It feels like.
Yep. Like Fred's razor, and then his shower, and
yeah. And Dino apparently was voiced. They used Mel Blanc's vocalization from the cartoon.
So I mean, I guess they had it sitting in a drawer, Okay. But this shot right here is great, right? Like the on the left side, it's the puppet, and then the camera tracks over, and it's the CGI Dino, and it works seamlessly.
Yeah, it's good.
Like Elizabeth Perkins, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I had seen Big at the time I saw this.
This may have. I don't remember, but I don't even know if I would have made the connection, to be honest.
Right.
I like her, by the way. I feel bad saying that, but I just feel. Yeah, I think you've hit on what I was feeling, but wasn't quite realizing, and maybe even the director could just tell her like, yeah, put a little more sass in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always see. I mean, again, Flintstones very clearly based on the Honeymooners, and if you watch the Honeymooners, Audrey Meadows in that show, I mean, she gives as good as she gets, It's like King of Queens, she's like the Carrie,
right? Right. Yeah. I love the Picasso there in front, like the Chicago Picasso at Daily Plaza.
Yeah, Rick Moranis. I mean, we didn't know how good we had it back then with all the movies Rick Moranis was appearing in. Little did we realize that we were, it was like a dwindling resource.
Yeah, we thought he'd be doing this. We thought he'd be by our side forever.
Yeah,
but obviously
he's still here, thank goodness. But
yeah, but he stepped away because his wife had passed, and he wanted to be there and raise his kids. So it's very noble,
admirable reasons, but more. Selfishly, we wish we could see him in more movies.
Yeah, we miss him.
See, like this whole look at the all the work that goes into creating a Stone Age corporate building.
Yeah, and this is just the lobby.
That's the thing, right?
How much time do we spend here?
That's the thing. It's not like Nakatomi Tower where you just say, "Hey, we want to shoot there for an afternoon."
Yeah.
No, you got to build it.
Yeah. Yeah, and then come up with all the artwork and the lamps and the tables and the elevator.
What's amazing to me is that this cost $46 million, which is a lot for $1994, but it's not a lot.
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a extreme example, but Terminator 2 had already happened at $100 million.
Right.
But I mean, obviously it paid off, right? I mean, as I said earlier, it made $340 million worldwide, which is incredible. 1994 money.
The marketing campaign was inescapable.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. McDonald's, I remember, was a big thing. They had these glasses.
Rock Donald's.
Yep.
Yeah, there were ads with Rosie O'Donnell as Betty in them. I remember that.
Oh, funny.
I do love how whenever Halle Berry shows up, we get the sexy sax music.
Totally.
It's like the universal symbol of shenanigans.
That's really funny.
I mean, that's the thing about the story is it is very much of a piece with what you would see. I love there where he looks right at the camera
Yeah.
when he shuts the door. It's really funny. It's of a piece with what you would have seen on the cartoon show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you know, to that point, like I think it's very telling that the success of this film not only didn't lead to any other sequels. Well, no, that's not true. There was the prequel. There was the prequel, but like sequels, I mean, that was like 6 years later, and nobody watched that, as far as I know. But we didn't get, you know, the Jetsons, or you know what I mean. Like there was no run towards let's adapt other old Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm shocked there hasn't been a Jetsons movie. And as we were alluding to earlier, maybe the window has passed for that, but
I think so.
I would kind of like to watch that. That'd be kind of fun. There was an animated Jetsons movie. I remember that.
Yes, that was like 1990, which even back then, I remember when that came out and I was like, really? The Jetsons?
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Putting modern actors in this makes it feel like, oh, I can see, of course. Sure, why not?
Right.
But you're right. Just making a feature-length Jetsons cartoon to put into theaters in 1990 feels like, okay.
That was, yeah. And I think that one was even sitting in a drawer for a couple of years also.
Oh, interesting.
By the time they got it out. Real quick, the Dictabird here is voiced by Harvey Korman from the Carol Burnett Show and, you know,
Blazing Saddles.
etc. Yeah, Young Frankenstein. But he was, in terms of Flintstones, he was the voice of Gazoo in the animated series. So,
a character I've previously mentioned, I'd love to see inserted into more dramas.
Dude, I think that maybe one of the hardest times I've ever laughed when you brought up that pitch.
So yeah, put him in dramas, but still make him an invisible alien that only our hero can see.
That's right.
But yeah, that's a good puppet, by the way.
Yeah, I think all of the creature puppets work quite well, and I mean, knowing like you don't even need to know they're Henson puppets to know they're Henson puppets.
Yeah, there's a look.
You know.
Yeah.
See, again, this here, like the whole embezzling scheme, definitely. I think this is something that Siskel and Ebert, because they weren't particularly fans of this one.
Yeah, I watched that.
They're like embezzling and adultery and whatever. It's like, yeah, but I mean, that's not what you're focusing on as a kid.
Right. And it's funny because the first movie that Gene Siskel thinks of that is fun for kids, unlike this one, he's like, let's make it like Wayne's World. Wayne's World was fun. I thought that was funny.
Which that was not a kid's movie when that came out, you know?
I mean, it's not made as a kid's movie, but I know kids loved it.
It was not intended as, yeah.
Yeah. But I do love how simple the plot is also. I mean, there's embezzlement, but it's basically like have him sign forms that, you know, make us look like we are not guilty and he is guilty.
Right.
You know, it's just that simple.
And it's very on brand. It's funny because earlier in the film, you know, before Fred gets the promotion, Halle Berry's like, oh, Fred Flintstone got the highest score. And he's like, Fred Flintstone, that big ape? She's like, no, the big ape got a whatever. And I was like, it's like such an airplane style.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I jotted down in my notes immediately following that it was pretty witty. A lot of the dialogue's pretty witty.
There's some funny one-liners back and forth.
Yeah. I think we missed it also, but there was it with the newspaper. Wasn't there a reference to the Uruguayan rugby team plane crash?
Oh, and I didn't see that.
Yeah, something it says, I wrote it down. It was in like the trivia. Something about pterodactyl crashes in Andes and eats rugby team to survive.
Oh my God.
Which is funny-ish. Also kind of horrifying, really.
Right?
You know, I mean, if you're like a family member just trying, you know, of that tragedy and just trying to escape watching the Flintstones movie.
Yeah, let's go.
Making light of that. But that movie, Alive,
was the same year.
No, year
93.
So it was very much, there was a, you know, I mean, people riffed on that concept a lot after that movie came out.
That's right.
So, Walk the Dinosaur. That's funny. Is that what this is from? I know that song. I don't know why. Is that?
That is a good question.
I don't know. Oh, that's funny. I didn't even think about it. The deviled eggs are so big because they'd be like pterodactyl eggs.
They're dinosaur eggs.
Yeah.
So have you seen the prequel?
I haven't. Have you?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I have no desire to be honest.
I just know there's a Baldwin in it. That's all I know.
Yeah, Stephen Baldwin is Barney,
Yeah.
and Mark Addy from The Full Monty is Fred.
And it's how they met their wives?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, okay. What were we going to say?
No, I was saying the casting in that one isn't terrible. Jane Krakowski from 30 Rock, she's Betty.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's her name from Third Rock from the Sun?
Yes, Kristen Johnston.
Johnston.
Yeah.
She's Wilma. Yeah. I didn't realize 30 Rock, Third Rock. Both of them are.
How about that?
Yeah. And Gazoo is played by Alan Cummings.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Actually, I almost want to watch it now just to see that.
Yeah, I remember Mark Addy. He was another one of the fat guy with a hot wife sitcom. You know, part of that the line of sitcoms. He had a show with Jamie Gertz.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it had some generic name. I can't remember,
Okay.
but let me look that up. Actually, Still Standing. That's what it's called.
That title sounds familiar. Is that like a CBS kind of thing? Or?
CBS. Yep.
Yeah. I just saw some sort of Bruce Springsteen parody by the.
So that right there, the old lady holding Dino, that's Jean Vanderpyle. She was the voice of Wilma.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah, they get a couple of cool cameos in here
of
people who are no longer around. But
yeah, I remember Elizabeth Taylor. It's funny because I can't say I've even seen many of her movies. I just knew she was a big deal when I was this age.
Yeah, that's right.
Early teens, tweens, whatever. Because she also was the voice of Maggie Simpson.
Yeah, and it was a big deal that
yeah.
Elizabeth Taylor is going to be her voice.
So everyone made a big deal out of her, but I never, at that time, certainly was not. I didn't have any grasp on that.
And that was right around this.
Yeah, it feels right. Which, by the way, I mean, The Simpsons has even poked fun at itself for being like, hey, we're sort of like a modern Flintstones.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a big deal when The Simpsons surpassed the Flintstones in terms of how, like, the number of episodes it ran.
Right, because, well, the Flintstones, I guess we should say it's history. Back in 1960, it was the first animated series in prime time, right? It was on ABC. And yeah, until The Simpsons surpassed it in 1997, it was the longest running network animated television series.
I think it was the Sherry Bobbins episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that passed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many references to the Flintstones. I mean, my favorite one obviously is the monorail episode, which opens with Homer at work, like Fred Flintstone leaving work, singing the song.
It's so funny because you have to imagine that Conan, who wrote that episode, so much of his humor was shaped by the comedy that he was exposed to when he was younger.
Absolutely.
Right? And so by the way, Dan Florek as Mr. Slate, that's like perfect casting.
Oh, yeah.
He was Captain Kragen on Law and Order.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the show anymore, but he was on it for a while. And then I believe Bill Hanna is in this scene as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really? That's funny. Bumping the heads with the suitcase or briefcase. That's something that I wonder if the director brought that.
Right.
That was written in the script, or if he's like, look, you know what would happen? Fred would be, he doesn't belong in this room, and he'd be a little bit of a goofball and have bump their heads with your briefcase.
What is this? A house for ants?
I know. We definitely, we get that joke, don't we? That's so funny. And I also I remembered nothing about this movie, so I didn't even realize.
So
Is
this
that?
guy right here, that's
Yeah.
William Hanna.
I was gonna say that feels like
Yeah.
a cameo.
Sorry, you were saying?
No, I didn't even realize that we were basically witnessing the third act here.
Oh, right. I know exactly.
Yeah,
I thought about that later. I was like, oh, okay.
which is smart. It's clever.
What's funny about, well, I guess we'll get there, but like, it's like the third act is relatively constrained by just limitations, but it's also, in my opinion, weirdly overblown for a movie like this.
Wait, what do you mean?
Like it's a lot. I'm like, it's still a Flintstones movie, and you got like explosions and this. It's like,
Sure.
yes.
That's funny. It is interesting going back because at the time it must have felt very big.
Yeah,
Now it doesn't feel as big because our movies go so much bigger.
right.
Yeah. By the way, Bam Bam, did you know that I guess he was played by twins from Iceland who didn't speak
Yes.
English? And so
Yeah.
he was dubbed over by Elizabeth Daily, who played Dottie in Pee-wee's Big Adventure,
Oh wow.
Tommy from Rugrats. So that's her doing his voice, all the Bam Bam.
So those Icelandic twins could not say Bam Bam.
Not convincingly,
Wow. Okay.
apparently.
Yeah, Pebbles is also played by twins.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I was like, oh, is that Michelle? I was like, no, it's not Michelle. She watches Full House all the time.
I see that. I see the resemblance, yeah.
I'm just like, no, all white girls look alike.
That's right. Start them young.
It is funny that Bam Bam has like the prototypical white kid from the 80s and 90s bowl haircut.
He totally does, yeah.
That's what's interesting is that at the time this movie came out, again, the Flintstones was not as, I mean, that literally right there, that's the end of the movie, what we just saw with the concrete,
Oh, yeah.
But
Wait,
the
that,
Flintstones,
that was bird crap, right?
yeah, but it looks like
Oh, I see. Yeah.
what happens at the end,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was saying it wasn't as past tense as we think. Like, it wasn't like, oh, this show has been off the air since forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because again, it was still heavily syndicated, and there was also in the early '90s, in the lead up to this, there was these 2 TV movies that they did in prime time, where Pebbles and Bam Bam get married.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, there was 2 of them. There was one called I Yabba Dabba Doo.
Huh. What year was that?
It was like '93.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then there was the year later there was it's called Bed Rockabye Baby, I think. And it that's Pebbles has a baby.
Wow. Okay.
So in other words, my point is they were doing like Very Brady Christmas but with the Flintstones.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
Were they deadly serious dramas?
No, like weirdly, if Fred is going to die because, he got swallowed up by a brachiosaur.
Yeah.
And the brachiosaur is like, it's a living. No, what was I saying? I was saying about Conan. I was watching. This is like one of his recurring bits that he had when he was on late night. And you watch his late night stuff, and you're like, this man. Yeah, I know it's a source of heartbreak for him, but he should never have, like, he was not meant for the Tonight Show.
I agree. It's easier to say now in hindsight,
right?
But it's so true. It was putting handcuffs on him.
Exactly, because he has this recurring bit where, and maybe you've seen this, where it's the ghost of an old time crooner from like the 30s is haunting his studio.
Yeah.
And he sings songs like "Women shouldn't be allowed to vote." He's like, no, it's terrible. And that's the whole bit.
Right.
And I'm like, my point is, I'm like, that's not something Conan himself grew up with, but it's something he was probably exposed to.
Yes.
Like the Bing Crosby type,
right.
Blah, 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 and that's like us too, right? We're like secondhand exposed to these cultural reference points.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny though, because they're almost like third hand to us now because we are getting them from people like Conan.
Right. But when Conan was doing it, like I got it, right? Like
Oh, same.
now, right? Because again, thanks to Looney Tunes cartoons and stuff, I knew who Peter Lorre was or who Bing Crosby was, or all these like the celebrity culture that it was lampooning hung around longer because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally.
Like there's a Flintstones where it's like kind of a Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello type. Well, I didn't know who they were except through these cartoons, you know?
Yeah, and speaking of Full House, I remember weren't they on Full House as guest stars?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was probably fun for our parents to see that, but I was like, okay, so I guess they made beach movies in the 60s. Like
Right.
so I know who they are now, but I've never seen one of their movies.
Right.
Yeah. I will say though, going back to what I was talking about sock hops and trying to stick all that stuff into puppy dog pals, to their credit, they let me. So hopefully sock hops, the ideas of them will now live on with another
It
generation.
lives on thanks to you.
Yeah.
You're doing the Lord's work. Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly like I'm just so gobsmacked by the production design here. You know,
Even that giant
the
sandwich,
yeah,
it's on the
exactly.
table. I know.
The blinds and I mean, you name it. You know.
Yeah. Wait, no, okay. I have a question for you. So the
Oh,
first couple seasons of the Flintstones, well, I should speak to this too because it's so funny. The first two seasons were sponsored by Winston cigarettes,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? So you would see commercials on television of Barney and Fred smoking cigarettes. You can see these things on YouTube and they're hilarious.
yeah. That's right.
Um, anyway, that was just something funny I wanted to point out. But my memory is that the first couple seasons were in black and white, and then eventually they went to color. Did they show the black and white ones when we were kids? Because I mostly remember them being in color.
The show was in color from the start.
Oh, so they were just broadcast, like TV turned to color while they
Yeah,
were.
exactly. Yeah, so the show
Ah,
itself was in color from the start, but the theme music didn't kick in until a couple seasons in, you know, possibly second, maybe even the third.
yeah. You know, I also
Like
realize how silly what I'm saying is because it would be like, what did they just use shades of gray to paint the cells? I always say the dumbest things on commentaries I can't cut out.
the seed that they plant here for her face turn, it's so like it's very transparent.
Yes.
You're like, okay, well, I can. Suddenly, the third act becomes clear. You know.
Yes. Yeah. You know, I do kind of admire the fact, as I was saying earlier, I had a hard time loving this movie, but I did, you know, it was fine. But I do admire that they kept with the spirit of the show by basically doing an episode and all the sort of tropiness that comes along with that. I mean, that feels like you could do a million ideas for a Flintstones movie, but this feels correct to me.
I totally agree. You know, I mean, it's. I mean, clearly they tried to do like the Flintstones origin 6 years later,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean nobody cares about that, you know.
Yeah, we want to see what we know already.
Yeah, and that gets to John Goodman, his reticence to doing a sequel. I think that actually worked out because I think there's one movie's worth of premise here.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what does another one look like? It's just more of this. Well, we already got it.
Yeah, that's true. It's just another episode that cost, $60
Yeah,
million.
yeah, exactly. You know,
Yeah.
so I think, a lot of these things ended up becoming one and done,
Hmm.
which with the benefit of hindsight, we're talking about Dick Tracy. Well, did we need another Dick Tracy? No, I think they did what they needed to do with the first one.
Yeah, because it might have felt like more of the same, whereas
More of the
that one
same.
feels special because it's unique.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like remember when they did the Sin City sequel and nobody gave a crap?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever even saw it, but I was
I
like,
never
yeah, I've
saw it.
seen it.
Seen it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
I mean, that's the dilemma, right? Is with a lot of these things, and again, I wouldn't put this on the same level as like the Rocketeer or something, but because it's just not. But I do think, well, you did it, and as an oddity, I think I don't think it's not worth watching. I think it's worth a watch, and that's it. And and if you want more Flintstones, well, you got like 5 seasons of the cartoon show
Yeah, right.
because this is basically that.
Totally. I kind of was horrified watching the garbage disposal get removed until you later learned that he's at least still alive.
Yeah, it'd be funny if you cut to like a slow roasted,
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I guess that's what they did.
Well, but instead of him being like, "Hey, where are we going? Where are you taking me?" He's like, "No!" Like, he's like putting his hooves into the ground, trying not to get. It's kind of horrifying. So when I saw him later, I was like, "Oh, thank God,
nobody ate him."
Yeah,
that's really funny.
Did we just heard the theme song? That was by the B-52s, right? I think.
Yes, the BC-52.
The BC-52s. Brilliant.
See, what's kind of remarkable to me is as I was watching this, I was like I know the Flintstones living room very well, and it's like the Simpsons living room. Like we know what it looks like.
Right.
But that's the thing when you think about it, right? Like you couldn't do a Simpsons movie like this.
No.
There's just no way to do it, right? And because it's meant to be a world that's like our world, except the people are cartoon people,
Right.
I think the Flintstones, it's the fact that it's the Stone Age is irrelevant, right? I mean, it looks a certain way, and that's what this evokes,
And we know what their phones look like.
Yeah, the bone phone.
Exactly.
I guess we should be grateful nobody tried to do a live action Simpsons movie.
Yeah, I can't even. Well, there was that commercial, I think, from the UK or something, right? It was meant as a promo. Have you ever seen that? The live action
yes.
on the opening, which is very, very good. It's very well done. But we don't hear them speak. We don't see them really doing any sort of jokes or anything. It's just a recreation of the zany opening. I agree with you. I think trying to recreate the humor, the way they speak to one another would just be cringy.
The thing that bugged me about that Simpsons remake of the opening is the actor who they cast as Marge is kind of like this frumpy old lady. And I don't know if we've talked about it, but I'm like, per the show, Marge is supposed to be hot.
Yes.
It's supposed to be like the fat guy, hot wife thing.
Right. And we're not speaking to the actress specifically. It's the way
but it's the way they chose to depict her. Yeah.
The way they choose to depict her. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I didn't even notice the first time I saw it when I was doing the research that.
By the way, right there, Joe Barbera. In the car. Anyway, sorry.
Where he's chiseling the whatever agreements he thinks are going to benefit his workers, but they're pink slips. Basically,
right.
He's just signing pink slips. And this song was in the show, I guess, the Bedrock Twitch.
I actually didn't know that. Wow.
I sort of remember it, but I remember more. What's that?
It sounded weirdly familiar to me. So
yeah, and it's fun seeing the B-52s do it. But I remember Let the Sun Shine In more. Do you remember that with Pebbles and Bam Bam? I think it's a dream Fred has about Pebbles and Bam Bam recording a song that becomes a sensation. And it's called Let the Sun Shine In.
Back when shows used to do that, right? Like the Zack Attack.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There'd be like a dream we become a famous band episode.
Right.
That's so weird. I didn't even think about that. Huh. Yeah.
I've told you when it comes to Saved by the Bell, if you've not seen it, you should watch the reboot that they did a couple years ago.
Yeah. It didn't really take, unfortunately, but I think that might have been more of a Peacock problem than a content problem.
I mean, the nice thing for you now is like, well, you got 20 episodes of this thing, and it's pretty solid. And you you grew up with Saved by the Bell, you'll appreciate, what it does.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Barney, look at
no,
this.
no. I mean, this is just like, this is a sitcom, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
You can almost hear the audience go, oh, when they see that Barney's working there. Yeah, but it's, I mean, yes, this is total sitcom convention. I can see this as an episode of the Flintstones, but this being the first movie, I don't like seeing Fred be so mean. I don't know.
I think that's I think my guess is that yes, it's their first movie, but it's just another Flintstones. And so it's sort of it's factoring in people's familiarity with the show.
Totally. And I think I don't mind watching my characters go through something, of course. I mean, that's drama, but I think I don't like feeling bad looking at the characters I came to see. You know?
Right.
I kind of like the graininess of the TV. I mean, they're going to have a TV, but it looks like worse than 8mm. You know, it looks sort of like a really something that's been duplicated 20 times or something, like really, really grainy.
Well, it's historically accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it looked like. John Goodman, at the time this film was made, he was still on Roseanne, I think, for another couple of years, right?
Probably 94. I don't know.
Because I think that show went until 98, I think.
Wow. Okay.
I know he wasn't in the last season. I remember that. Or no, he was, but he was in less episodes.
Yes, because didn't he die or something?
In the show, yeah, in the next to last season finale, he has a heart attack.
Uh-huh.
And then he's like recovering from the heart attack in the next season. And then we find out in the last episode that the last season was like Roseanne wrote a book or a screenplay or something. And so she's like, oh, actually, Dan died.
Mm.
You know? And then like 20 years later, they did the reboot and they killed off Roseanne. So turned him out as fair play.
Right. And then you see John Goodman at a typewriter writing his script. Like, actually.
Ain't I a stinker?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy because The Conners is, you know, it's gone into syndication now.
It's amazing.
Right? And I think it's the longest lasting of these. Like, there was like this brief window where suddenly we were bringing back all these old shows, you know?
Yeah. Pterodactyls.
The thing is, John Goodman is such a good actor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like we're at a point now where whatever he does, he does it well. Like you have a guarantee of a certain level of performance from him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know?
And a whole varying sorts of characters. I mean, from the 10 Cloverfield Lane to Big Lebowski, you know, it's like he can be sinister, he can be funny, he can be over the top.
Yeah, and you know, he's the voice of Sully, you know, in the Monsters Inc. franchise.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I'm just so used to seeing him, you almost start to forget. You know, it's like, no, it's Sully. I guess that's that's a compliment. Yeah. Wait. Oh, Rock Market Falls. I was trying to look at the newspaper closer. Man, Elizabeth Perkins looks great there.
Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't had more of a career.
Yeah, I know she was on Weeds. That's the last thing that comes to mind for me.
She was in Across the Spider-Verse, she's the voice of Aunt May.
Oh, really?
But not Into the Spider-Verse.
Huh.
So Into the Spider-Verse, it was a different actor, but
let's see.
I'm trying to see like what else she's done.
She's in Barry, a couple episodes of Barry. Minx Morning Show, which I haven't watched.
Yeah, just one episode of that.
Glow.
Yeah, she was on Weeds for the run.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Sharp Object.
Yeah, but just like an episode.
Yeah. How to Get Away with Murder, Closer. Yeah, she's Monk.
I mean, she's kept working.
Yeah, yeah.
But and she went to DePaul University, by the way.
Oh, wow.
So she's a Chicagoan.
I always think about scenes like this where people are just smashing things.
Yeah.
It's like, how many takes
Oh,
do you try to get? Like you
yeah.
gotta,
This is the equivalent of when Connie is breaking the dishes in The Godfather right before Carlo beats her.
That's right. Yeah.
Obviously, that was the intent. We want to evoke the spousal abuse scene from The Godfather.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
This is such a Homer Simpson moment. The way
It's funny you
he's
say
like,
that.
come back now.
Yes, I thought that a couple
back.
times
Yeah.
throughout. He reminded me of Homer Simpson.
Right at the end where he's like, please. Like, that's
Mhm.
very Homer, isn't it?
Very Homer, yeah. Which had been around. I mean, this is 94. They debuted in 90. I mean, as a series. I mean, even before that as a shorts.
I mean, that's the thing is that by this time, The Simpsons had sort of supplanted the Flintstones as America's animated family of record.
Right. Lovable dopey dad, kind of thing.
And then a couple years later, we get the Xerox of that with Family Guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's crazy that both The Simpsons and Family Guy are still going, and they're not in danger of stopping anytime soon.
And it's amazing that Family Guy came so quickly after The Simpsons and so resembles The Simpsons.
Right.
The dad, the wife, the son, the daughter, the baby.
Yeah.
But it was different enough, and the humor was different enough that it could be its own thing. And
Right.
it's still, was it 25 years now? Something like that?
It's crazy. I mean, it went away in the early goings
Right.
for like 3 years.
Right.
But it came back, I think, in 2005, and it's been going ever since then.
Yeah. Was that one of the first instances where DVD sales saved a show?
I remember very distinctly after I moved to California, the DVD set had just come out, and I was driving around trying to find it, and no store had it in stock. So that was the first instance where there was like scarcity, DVD scarcity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those earlier seasons definitely felt special because my college roommates and I basically discovered the show on DVD after it had been canceled. So since there was only a certain amount of episodes, each one became event viewing where we'd wait for each other to get back from class so we could watch what felt like this limited collection of this quirky, unpredictable show that just cracked us up.
Speaking of Family Guy, you mentioned the Seth MacFarlane was trying to get like a Flintstones revival up and running.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what did happen with that? Because I was literally like, did that happen? Like, I remember seeing the art for it.
Oh, really? I don't know that I've seen that. I want to look that up. But I read on Wikipedia, I think this was around 2013, and maybe for ABC, not Fox. But I guess whoever was in charge and saw the test footage said that it was good, but not great. Like, yeah, no, that's good. But good wasn't enough to get it greenlit.
That's interesting.
I do wonder, though, what do you do with this in 2024? True. I don't really know without it being true to itself, but not Family Guy. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How do you make it stand out, but still be it's kind of inherently a little corny, and you want it to be. But maybe that's not what people are looking for in prime time in this day. I don't know.
How do you continue it without breaking the canon, right?
Yes. Yes.
I remember having a conversation with somebody online, like back at the, at a time when I would talk online about stuff like this, where somebody was like talking about the Flintstone kids. Remember that show?
Kinda.
It's like Fred, Barney, Wilma, Betty. They're all as kids, because there was a minute there where that's all cartoons were doing that.
Yeah, like Muppet Babies.
Muppet Babies kind of got the ball rolling, and then you had Flintstone kids, and pup named Scooby Doo, etc.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't like it because it breaks the canon, and I'm like, please don't tell me you're talking about canon. The Flintstones, really?
It breaks the canon. Yeah. Well, thank God we have multiverse public consciousness now. So
exactly,
it's another timeline.
Yeah, there was like Yo Yogi, where
Yeah.
Hanna-Barbera was really doing that.
That's funny. I forgot about that. I was reading about Elizabeth Taylor, and it said on her first day on set, she was greeted with 30 bouquets of flowers, a Cartier watch, and basically props with her name on them, and like a fake bottle of Passion, which was her perfume.
Okay.
I was like, that sounds nice. Just like on top of getting paid and everything, you show up, you're like, here's a really expensive watch, and here's this and that. I mean, she must have
Which tells me she was probably really high maintenance, and it was like, we want to. Oh, but there's Jay Leno.
Yeah, right.
Jay Leno doing like his it's such a Jay Leno delivery, like when he would do like faux serious. So who's the actor who plays Fred on this show? I feel like that's somebody.
I don't know. Is there anyone else recognizable in this?
In this
Dramatization?
I don't believe so.
I'm not sure.
But anyway, that was my sense. Is probably Elizabeth Taylor's like a huge pain in the ass, I would imagine.
I read another story though that sounded kind of funny, where apparently later in the movie, when she's tied up on the ground, the director accidentally stood on her, like stepped on her.
Okay.
And so she had to be taken away for a minute to be checked out. And he was all like, oh my gosh, what have I done? He came back all wrapped up and with crutches, but she did it as a joke.
Oh, okay.
I was like, well, that's funny. It sounds like at least she was being playful with him.
Right. So Jonathan Winters here.
Yeah, I probably half knew who that guy was when this came out.
How funny. This summer, actually, he was also in The Shadow, also from Universal.
Yeah.
The same, which I suspect you and I will revisit at some point.
Yes, which I've never seen.
Or you will visit.
Yes, I would like to see it because it's more 90s that I missed out on that I want to see.
The Shadow would wrap up our walk through the retro superhero movies of the 90s.
Yeah,
we gotta square that circle. Yeah, the whole thing where the pig recognizes Fred, I think that's hilarious. I was cracking up at that.
Yeah, it's like he gets his revenge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is working with Jonathan Winters was people may not know Jonathan Winters, comedy legend.
Oh yeah.
He was on Mork and Mindy as Mork's son. There's a weird show, Mork and Mindy. But anyway,
actually, this director I think wrote for Mork and Mindy.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Goodman talked about he got to do a scene with Jonathan Winters, and that was one of the highlights for him.
And I'll age myself here. I'll blame it completely on that. But for me, Jonathan Winters is a guy who's in like old Carson clips.
I mean, basically, right? It's like Dom DeLuise and people like that, right?
DeLuise, yeah. Exactly. I like this as a device, by the way, the Dictabird.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
It totally set up. It makes sense why it would be in his office. He is something that's useful, but also becomes there's a little relationship between them. So they have a fun sparring sort of nature. But then it's also like, well, it makes sense. Yeah, he records everything that's being said. He can give the evidence to prove that Fred's innocent. It's pretty good.
It's all, it's all within the film.
Yeah, it's tidy. And it feels Flintstone-y.
That's right.
Now, you know what I found interesting? Did you see that Jonathan Landis John Landis was brought in for uncredited reshoots?
Really?
Yeah. And I would love to know what that is. What in this movie was put in that they would get someone like John Landis to shoot them? Like, what is it that was pasted in? I'm very curious.
I'm fascinated by Steven Spielberg, of all people, bringing Landis back onto a set. Because he got roped in with all that Twilight Zone movie stuff.
I know. You wonder if that's him. I mean, in this era, is it him kind of looking out for him, or?
What has Landis done?
He did Coming to America before,
right? But I mean, that's 88.
Yeah, but that's post Twilight Zone.
That's a good point.
He did have a hit.
What's he done since then, though?
Did he do Beverly Hills Cop 3?
No, Beverly Hills Cop. The first one is Martin Brest.
No, 3.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Which that does feel like all right here,
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
That's probably Eddie Murphy looking out for him.
Yeah. Speaking of us growing up with cartoons that had a lot of darkness in them, here it's like this
Yeah,
kid's
he's about to
movie.
be lynched.
They're gonna hang our heroes.
Yeah, which back in the day, you know what? It was just good, clean fun.
I think it was very common trope in kids' movies for the adult to feel like they had failed, so they tie a boulder to their ankle and they're gonna jump off a bridge and drown themselves. I mean,
Dude, do you remember the Pepe Le Pew cartoon where he pretends to kill himself?
I don't.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to get this cat that he's in love with to pay attention to him, and she won't. So he he through a pane of glass, he like holds up a gun and just walks off camera, and you hear a gunshot. And again, it's just the most common thing in the world. Just good, clean fun.
Although it's weird because looking at this imagery of the two buddies with
About to be
nooses
hung.
around their necks making up with one another feels right to me. You know? Like, yeah, we're about to die, and I guess that's fair. But I have to say, I haven't been treating you very well lately, Byron. You know,
That's
Yeah.
really funny.
So I mean, this does feel completely in the spirit of the show.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I really think Brian Levant, by virtue of having him come on, he just brought his fanboyness, and I don't think of Flintstones as something people are fanboys about,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm like, well, God bless it then. You know, the right guy got the job.
Totally. It is funny though to think that this all started with a script from the guy who wrote Die Hard and
Right?
Commando.
The guy who wrote and directed Street Fighter,
Yes, that's right.
which was this same year, by the way. So
Oh,
hey,
wow.
hey, we got another 30th anniversary track coming.
Another one I haven't seen, so I'll have to see that.
We're filling all the holes in your awareness.
I missed it the first time. I can't hear it now, but apparently the snow cone van was playing.
Yeah, it's the Jetsons theme. Yep.
Yeah.
So you know what that means? Shared cinematic universe.
That's right. Actually, that's what they should have done for the sequel, the Flintstones Meet the Jetsons.
Meet the Jetsons. Yeah, you now you would have the post credit scene,
Yes,
right?
exactly that. Yeah.
like you know, Fred enters a dark room and he's like, "Is anybody there?" And you just hear, "Jane, stop this crazy thing!" Credits.
Yeah. And then the light comes on and he just face to face, like nose to nose with Rosie. You know, he's like, "What the heck are you?" Yeah.
I remember speaking of Family Guy, there was an episode like it's like a clip from the Jetsons that they're watching in Family Guy.
I don't remember.
And it's like, you know, on the show on Jetsons, you know, George would be jogging on that thing, like the treadmill, and then like Astro would jump on it, and then George is getting spun around by this treadmill.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that, but then we cut to like an hour later, and George comes in the house, and he's all beat up, and you know, Jane is like, "George, what happened?" He's like, "You didn't hear me? I was out there for 2 hours." and then Elroy's like, "Dad, what happened to you?" And he's like, "Elroy, go to your room." "But Dad, go to your room."
It feels very Family Guy.
It's not a Family Guy.
Oh, man. I do love how he just steps over the mother.
Well, he didn't step on her like the director.
Yeah.
So.
Finally, just completely ignores her being there, tied up on the ground.
Yeah, this is another thing, Brian. Like, we grew up. You and I both. We grew up with very familiar with the evil mother-in-law trope.
Yes, exactly.
Right, like as kids, we were like, "Oh, you know about the mother-in-laws."
Yeah, it'd be like the hero. His wife would be like, "Oh, my mother-in-law's coming over for dinner tonight," and he's like, "Well, I won't be here," and then he walks out the door. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and it's because of stuff like this.
Yeah, that's funny.
It wasn't even on The Simpsons because he wasn't opposed to Marge's mom.
No, it was just the sisters.
The sisters.
Yeah.
Look at Kyle MacLachlan as Rob Lowe here.
That bastard's hair. Such great hair. But before I forget, speaking of crossovers, Flintstones meet the Jetsons.
Yes.
I remember it being like, oh, that's kind of fun and cool as a kid, I guess. And then there's that Simpsons episode where the critic, right,
Yes.
comes into the Simpsons episode, and apparently the writers were like, we hate this. Crossover episodes are so cheap. And they even talk about it in the show itself, how crossovers are dumb. So it's funny that's how that's viewed.
Yeah, well, that episode was really interesting because I don't know if you remember when we talked to Mike Reese.
Yeah.
He talked about that episode. How I don't remember if it was in our conversation, but Matt Groening did not want the critic on The Simpsons,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it was like a big fight. And like James L. Brooks was really pissed at Groening about it.
Didn't he take his name off of it, Groening?
That episode,
Yeah.
possibly, or maybe he wanted to, but he couldn't. You know.
Yeah. I feel like there is one episode where he took his name off of it or something. But it's funny how many episodes that just Simpsons specifically that the writers didn't like or had a problem with, and those have become classics, like the softball episode.
Right. Well, and the critic one I think is funny.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I would say that's a classic episode.
I mean, there was a Futurama crossover, wasn't there?
I feel like Bender appeared, but I don't remember them like interacting much with like a story.
What I remember is that initially with Futurama, they were like, The Simpsons is a show in the world of Futurama.
Okay.
And so there was like some canon breaking that ended up happening by virtue of having Futurama characters show up.
Well, when you've been on for over 30 years, I mean, they made Kang and Kodos actually exist, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I was thinking I was thinking that I was like, man, that stuntman earned his keep right there.
Yeah, that is a drop.
A couple of years after this was George of the Jungle.
Yeah, right.
And that's Jay Ward. It's not Hanna-Barbera, but very similar to this. Like when I think of movie adaptations of cartoons, I think George of the Jungle nailed it as well.
I've never seen that.
That is that is a fun movie.
I bet I'd like it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's her name? Judd Apatow's wife.
Yeah, Leslie Mann.
She's a love interest. Thomas Hayden Church is the villain. He's great. It's just fun, man. Brendan Fraser is great in that.
Yeah, and then there was a Rocky and Bullwinkle movie.
Yeah, that was terrible.
I'm not saying it's good, but I mean, this was that we keep saying it, but that window.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't see a lot of Hanna-Barbera adaptations, but you definitely. I mean, we talked just recently about Inspector Gadget. That was a couple of years after this, and and a lot, all of those, like it's like adaptations of cartoons that in the 90s. That was like the last time. This is so funny, by the way. When
That's very funny. That reminds me of Homer.
Right?
Seeing Patty and Selma in a dinosaur's mouth.
See, this I guess what I was saying earlier about the third act, right? Like, I mean, yeah, in terms of today, this is relatively low scale, but like for a Flintstones movie, this seems like a lot.
You know what? I'm going to actually say this feels right for a big summer movie, but a Flintstones episode, this would seem like a lot.
Yes, I guess that's where I'm coming from.
I like that bird. Just looking at the bird is making me laugh. Yeah, there you go.
Music.
Yep. Yep. We got our turn, like you said, telegraphed.
The whole thing with how they invent concrete, that cracks me up.
It's funny.
See, I love how the rocks and stuff, I mean, they look like right out of the show, right? But it's like a theme park, what you'd see now, Yes.
It's not just a normal real life rock. It has sort of a stylized color to it. Yeah,
exactly. See, like this, I mean, this is like the third act of Zorro.
It kind of is,
right? The explosion, and then the villain is killed by the thing that falls on top of him.
I was surprised he was killed. I'll say that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I thought maybe, you could imagine someone take a chisel to the mouth and he's like, "Let me out of here."
I totally was expecting that. Exactly.
Yeah. Something like that.
I was like, all right, they went there.
Yeah. No, he's dead.
Yes.
And it is good. Get the bowling thing back. Right?
Yeah, well, the nice thing is because Richard Mall earlier was like, he's not even a good bowler.
No, that's right. Yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
Bull, how wrong you are.
Right. Put the
See this
twinkle
right
toes.
here? It's just like in Zorro when Matt Letcher gets, all those gold bars fall on top of
Yeah,
him.
you're totally right.
Right?
And they're both produced by Steven Spielberg.
There you go. So we know Spielberg has a particular, he wants the bad guys dealt with in a specific way,
That's funny.
but only in the movies he produces.
And they're like, how do we get rid of the villain in Zorro? And he's like, do you remember how the Flintstones ended? And everyone's like, no. And he's like, perfect.
It's so funny. Yeah, I definitely remember Halle Berry making a mark on me when I saw
Me
this
too.
movie. Yeah,
Definitely.
and I'm fairly certain this is the first thing I saw her in.
Yeah. Actually, when you were in town, we missed going to a birthday party that she was at.
Yeah, that's right. I remember you mentioned that.
Yeah,
I remember we were talking about, hey, should we go there? Hey, and then the next thing, like,
yep.
it's like, yep, Halle Berry was there.
And we missed.
I would have been like,
Stone.
I would have been like, remember when you were in the Flintstones? And then cut to me getting tossed out like jazz from.
That's funny.
So this actor, Dan Florek, he started on the original Law and Order. He was on the first 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then they replaced him so that they could bring a little bit more diversity, So he was replaced by Pat the Merkerson,
Okay.
who was on that original show like for a long time after that. But in '99 with SVU, they were like, oh, let's bring him back. And then he was on SVU for the next 16 seasons.
Wow.
Man.
Good work if you can get it.
See, Kyle MacLachlan is now frozen in perpetuity like a denizen of Pompeii.
Yes. Yeah.
And everybody's like, ha, ha, ha.
I know. It's kind of surprising.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You would have had like like he's stuck, but he's still, he's not dead.
Yeah, like his jaw, the part of his jaw would like crumble away, and he'd be like, "Ugh."
"Get me out of here!"
Exactly. I love this whole stuff too, where he's like, "Yeah, but damn it," like raises into the sky.
Yep.
And like, wait, no, Fred. He's like, yes, and then he comes back down. I like that cartoon gravity in here.
I do wonder, because in Goodman, when he was doing the junkets, that was his thing. He's like, am I going to go the rest of my life and have people coming up to me saying yabba dabba do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously that turned out not to be the case, but I definitely, when he does it in the movie, I'm like, how does he feel when he's saying that? Like, does he feel embarrassed? Does he feel proud? What goes through John Goodman's mind? Because to me, to my eyes, he's bringing it.
I think it's like karaoke. This is what I always say. If you go up there and you do it like half-assed, you're going to look terrible. But if you commit, whether you're good or bad, that's when it works. You know what I mean? You have to commit, otherwise you're going to look silly.
Do you speak from experience as a karaokeician?
I can't speak for myself. I don't know what I look like up there. I hope not terrible, but I just feel like when people sort of like, oh no, this is terrible. Like that's when it gets awkward for everyone. Like if you just commit, then usually people start cheering for you to make you feel better.
That's a good point.
So likewise, I think, yeah, he appears to be committing, even though he may be dying inside. I don't know. I love this. I love the recreation of the opening at the beginning.
It's perfect.
And the ending here.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah. It makes me smile.
I mean, this movie comes out Memorial Day weekend of 1994, and for a while there, it has the record as the most successful Memorial Day release ever.
Wow. That's
so
amazing.
I mean, it was a big hit, and it's weird because as we were talking about earlier, right? Like it has been forgotten to some extent or written off like, oh, actually it sucked,
Uh-huh.
And I mean, look, this is not the Magnificent Ambersons.
No.
But it doesn't need to be. And so I think for what it is, I understand why it did well. Against a $46 million budget, it made $341 million in 1994 dollars.
Yeah. And just to what you're saying right now, I mean, obviously it wouldn't do that now, no matter who you put in it. We were saying there's really a window for it. It could only exist in that moment, but it did exist in that moment, and it succeeded in that moment, and it didn't even need to live on.
Right.
But it just existed at exactly the right time to be its best self and to make everybody happy. And it's just one of those rare things that will not continue on. But it happened at the right time.
That's exactly it. I mean, released today, that the box office would be more than $700 million.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, you have to contextualize. I mean, the merchandise was everywhere. The toys were everywhere.
Right.
Like, I remember seeing the Flintstones movie toys at every department store.
I kind of do too, now that you say it.
Yeah. And my understanding, because I think the toys are by Mattel, they didn't even know, like, the script was written so late in the process that they didn't even know what the characters were going to look like. So if you look at the toys, if you look them up, it's like a cartoon Fred body with a John Goodman head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because which I guess, like, what other way are you going to make it? Do we need realistically proportioned?
I'm seeing it now. Yeah.
You know what? You see it, right?
These are so weird.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because I look at that and I'm like, well, what kid would want those?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I say this as, I mean, I liked the Flintstones. I remember when I was younger, this may be a couple of years before this movie came out, I used to buy Pebbles cereal all the time, which I should say, I've only just stopped recently because I'm on this diet. Otherwise, I would have been eating a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, a bowl of diabetes while I was watching this movie with you.
Yeah.
But these boxes of cereal came with these little rubber figurines of Fred and Barney.
Yeah.
And I love those things, man.
Yeah. I mean, but it's just going back to what I was saying. I mean, it's just kind of interesting. Like, every movie wants to live on forever, right? You want to be that classic that everyone watches 10, 20, 30 years down the road, but this just isn't going to be that. However, it was a smashing success at the time. I mean, it's so interesting. I'd like to sort of look into more movies like that and just.
Yeah. And you know, there's the ones that flop when they came out and then they just live on forever.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Right. I mean, The Rocketeer, right?
Yep.
I would put in that boat.
Yep.
But you know, a movie like this kind of came and went. And, you know, I mean, I think that's just as applicable to, like, George of the Jungle or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's okay too, you know?
Totally. I mean, to this day, though, it's funny now that I'm thinking about it, I still sing the Bedrock Fruity Pebbles rap. You know, the Bedrock yellow, orange, purple, lemon, red, but to get the fruity taste, I got to trick Fred. It's in there forever, man. I'm going to be on deathbed whistling that.
I remember they had another cereal called Dino Pebbles. Or no. Well, they did have Dino Pebbles, but the one I liked was called Cinecrunch Pebbles.
That sounds like something I would like.
That's what I'm saying, man. Yeah. And, you know, this is before I became familiar with the concept of, like, oh, not all cereals, like, go the distance.
Yeah, right.
So one day it just went away, and I'll tell you, a little piece of me died that day, and it stayed dead.
Right.
Because goddamn, I love that cereal.
Yeah, they don't teach you that kind of thing happens in school. Like, that's something you have to find out in real life.
It comes at you fast.
Yeah.
You know, you grow up very suddenly when that happens.
By the way, in that recreation, Sam Raimi was in there.
Really?
That's who I was thinking of.
At the tail end of the movie.
Yeah. I was. I remembered there was someone in there, but I couldn't remember who.
I wonder what was Sam Raimi doing at that time?
I don't know.
Right? Like, what did he just happen to be on the lot?
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's weird. I'm thinking Universal.
Oh, that's true.
And he was making movies for Universal at that time.
Yeah.
But I don't know what okay, see, now I'm invested in this. I need to look this up.
Yeah. But yeah,
Sam Raimi, circa 1994. 1995 was The Quick and the Dead. That was Sony. So what would he have been making around 90? So there was Army of Darkness. That was 92. Yeah, I don't know. I guess he just happened to be there, and somebody was like, hey, I didn't see, like, what was his role?
I don't know. It went by really fast. I just saw
Oh.
it said reenactment actor or something like that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But maybe it was also like, I'm sure the set was super impressive. Steven Spielberg is producing it. Do you want to see it? Heck yeah, I want to see it. You want to be in it? Sure.
It's so funny how we always hear those stories, right? Oh, this set was so impressive that random actor showed up, and you hear a lot like how Spielberg wanted to see when they were filming Mortal Kombat or whatever, the connections that we wouldn't make necessarily.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. When in Holly Rock, visit Universal Studios.
Universal. All right. So, hey, that was the Flintstones.
Yeah. Wait, by the way, I was going to say, I wonder if we don't hear stories like that much anymore visiting sets because there aren't sets anymore. They're just big green screens.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Because it used to be like, we made a freaking pirate ship for the Goonies.
Yeah.
Come see it. It's over at stage 11,
That's such a good point. Yeah. It's a dying breed, it feels like,
Yeah.
We're not going to have entire suburbs from the Stone Age built anymore.
Sadly, no. But yes, this was fun. This was fun to go back in time. I mean, truly, it was back in time because I don't think I've seen this since maybe since it came out.
Yeah, it's like I said, I've watched it at least once or twice with my kids, but that's it within a span of 30 years.
I would be super curious what kids would think of it now. If it wouldn't seem big enough or zany enough because it doesn't have things moving faster than things can move now with CGI. But I would say, for people our age and older, it is, I didn't like love it, but there is still this inherent charm just in its production design and seeing the personification of these cartoon characters. So it was, I had a smile on my face every now and then, just admiring the craft, I guess.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think, it's not a movie that's going to live inside of you necessarily, unless you were exposed to it at between 5 and 10 years of age. But I think there's a lot to admire just in terms of a type of approach to filmmaking that we don't see a lot of anymore.
100%.
Right. So with that, I will bring the curtain down on this comment rock. No more puns. We don't. I think we're good. But hey, we'll be back soon with our next regular show as well as our next commentary track. I'm not going to say what that is, but you will see it shortly. And if you have any questions or comments for us, or you have any commentary suggestions, you can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. With that, on behalf of my partner Brian Hall, my name is Zaki Hassan. This has been our movie film commentary for the Flintstones. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, folks.
You watch me get Fred's Fruity Pebbles.
Who are you?
I'm the master rapper and I'm here to sing. I love Fruity Pebbles in a major way.
He loves Fruity Pebbles in a major way.
The bedrock yellow, orange, purple, lime, and red. But to get the fruity taste, I gotta trick Fred. Fruity.
To get the fruity taste, he's got to trick Fred. Barney.
Guess that's a wrap.
Most Fruity Pebbles cereal, part of this nutritious breakfast. Yeah, but delicious.